Welcome back to the channel. This will be my team selection for Gameweek 27. On screen you can see my current FPL challenge team, and I'll lock it in during the deadline stream tomorrow, and it just gives you a sneak preview perhaps of some of my favourite options for Gameweek 27, but that's not the only important Gameweek coming up. We've got the blank in 29, a double in 32, another one in 33, and even the single Gameweeks that precede Gameweek 27 are still extremely important, and they'll all be covered on this channel. The same goes for UCL Fantasy with the best wildcard and limitless teams week on week. But because we have unlimited transfers for the round of 16 in match day 11, it will be the best team and my drafts at the moment before my final team selection heading into that upcoming deadline. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you never miss a single upload or live stream. Follow me on X, Instagram, and Blue Sky. There's my Discord server, Spotify, and also my Patreon. All of that can be found in the description. But let's jump straight into my team selection for Gameweek 27, starting off with a review of Gameweek 26 and how I could improve for the long term. There has been a clear pattern this season where the Saturday goes awfully wrong for me, and then the Sunday players bail me out, and that was the case in Gameweek 26. It was covered in my reaction stream, of course, on Saturday night, but Matt Sells was not one of those players, because on the Sunday, in that early kickoff at 2 PM, he was absolutely dreadful. He got 0 points for me, as Nottingham Forest shipped in 4 goals against Newcastle. They showed fighting spirit and they clawed back a few goals, so they made the scoreline a bit more respectable. But Sells, to deliver 0 points, that's pretty much a first all season, and more often than not, he's going to give you some decent hauls, especially for the clean sheets and the saves. But even when Nottingham Forest failed to keep that clean sheet, he can give you 3 points as a decent score for a goalkeeper. As for my defenders, only one of them delivered in Trent Alexander-Arnold, but he was dribbled past 10 times against Doku. But who cares? We got the FPL points right, whilst Robinson and Mikolenko failed to deliver with 1 pointers each. And it's a good thing Veltman missed out entirely against Southampton, because Brighton kept the clean sheet, and I made a very late change of Veltman out for Mikolenko. So it's a good thing that didn't cost me a few points, because I've had a few clean sheets in the last couple of weeks on my bench. As for the midfield though, it's pretty much the same story as always. Mohamed Salah doing the business, but I would rather have these kind of differentials or lower owned players doing the job for me, like Antoine Semenyo. But guess what? When I bench Semenyo, he is absolutely brilliant, and when I start him, he does absolutely nothing. So the story continues with Semenyo, and it's not going to change anytime soon, it looks like. Justin Kluivert, my new signing, I put the vice captaincy on him. Originally it was on Alexander Isak, but that's not really too relevant. Mbeumo got 14 points on Friday night, and that was a great start to the game week. But then on the Saturday, things kind of went south. Cole Palmer blanked against Aston Villa, and he's been terrible in recent weeks, and that could be a good thing for those who are quite set on the Cole Palmer captaincy, because not many will go there now because of the lack of form, and Mohamed Salah is the clear standout in every single game week. He got a goal and an assist against Man City. Now, Chris Wood and Isak both delivered in the same game. Chris Wood providing the assist for Milenkovic for a consolation goal, and Isak scored a brace. The penalty wasn't great, and Sells got a hand to it, but his footwork was all over the place, and he wasn't able to parry it out, and ultimately, there are some FPL points on board. But if you're asking me, I would have rather Sells made a penalty save, because he's a much lower owned player in my setup, and that would have been a massive rank rise in terms of, you know, getting the green arrow and pushing me up in the mini leagues and all those places. As for my assistant manager, I didn't make a change. Oliver Glasner was very tempting to me, and he got 20 points in the end for a 2-0 victory away from home against Fulham. And Arteta was another consideration. I'm very glad I didn't go for him, because Arsenal failed to score. They lost 1-0 at home to West Ham, and he got 0 points for those that went there. I have to say, very disappointing. And Arsenal, in terms of the bookmakers and odds, were the most likely team to win this weekend. But it goes to show you that football can be unpredictable at times. Although in the case of Arsenal, this has been coming, and I was expecting it to happen on Wednesday night against Nottingham Forest. Arne Slot got 10 points though, clean sheet, 2 goals scored, and a win, standard stuff. And he got 38 points for me in that 3 game week period. Not bad, but of course, those that went from Moyes, Emery, and Glasner, even if they used free transfers on managers, they would have obviously come out on top. I do think those that triple captain Salah in Gameweek 24 and will assist the manager around Gameweek 32, I think that will produce the highest returns from those 2 chips in particular. But let's discuss my bench very quickly. There isn't really too much to comment on. Valdemarsson isn't going to play unless Flecken is injured, and if that's the case, Brentford won't keep many clean sheets. Joel Veltman, I don't know what it is about this guy. He always goes from the Brighton squad when they're about to play Southampton. I bought Veltman back in December when they were about to face Southampton at home, and the same thing happened there. and it's been nothing but pain and misery owning the likes of Veltman and Levi Colwill in my FPL team. Chelsea shifted to a back five against Aston Villa, and they had a very good start to that game, but ultimately their defensive frailties are still there, and I think against any decent opposition, Chelsea are going to struggle. Now, Ndiaye could be back sooner than expected, but he is on the chopping block for me, and with so much money in the bank now, with the assistant manager chip over for me, and that money coming back into my squad, I have a lot of funds in the bank, as you'll see right now. In terms of my game week score, it was 84 in the end, so it was a decent-ish return, a small green arrow to 352,000, but ultimately it's because of that system manager chip. I think those that did very well from the chip, and I did fairly okay, I'd say, but I think most that gained a lot of points and rank from it will be saying, oh, this chip should stay for next season. I don't share that same opinion, and it's an interesting idea in concept, but I would rather see something else like the all-out attack chip or even the limitless from UCL Fantasy instead, and also some point systems from those particular games like ball recoveries. But are we going to see it from FPL? Probably not. Ultimately though, it's a green arrow, I'll take it. And in terms of the money in the bank now, it is 3.2 million, so there is a lot of room for maneuver in terms of upgrading each position, and I can say bye-bye to Arne Slot and the assistant manager. 38 points gained, I'll take it. I didn't go for the table bonus, of course, and I think that is ultimately the ideal approach. You need some luck as well to go your way. For example, David Moyes, 98th minute equaliser against Liverpool. Darwin Núñez missing an open goal against Aston Villa to give Emery the table bonus draw. Sometimes you need that sort of thing to go your way, but that is how I did for Gameweek 26. And in terms of prices, not much has changed recently in the last couple of days, but expect to see a lot of transfer activity over the coming weeks and months, especially I'd say before the Tuesday deadline. So by the Wednesday, there should be a lot of price changes there. And Salah, of course, is going to be the top dog here. I don't think Erling Haaland is worth the money. And of course, he missed that crucial game against Liverpool on Sunday. But those are the prices as things stand. The overall value, by the way, not my selling prices. Otherwise, I'd have even more money to play with. But let's now move on to my transfer plans. And there's only one move I'm considering. So I'm going to keep it short. Not like last week where I had a lot of different ideas. But Matheus Cunha in for Ndiaye is such a simple transfer for me to make. The only downside is I would have to bench one of my attackers, and that could result in bench points being left there, and I don't like that sort of thing. But ultimately, it is squad depth, and Matheus Cunha has been one of my best transfers this season when I bought him around Game Week 10, and he's a bonus points machine, facing Fulham at home where he got 16 points in the reverse fixture, and Ndiaye might be out for another week or two, but ultimately, this is a major upgrade. It will leave me with 1.7 million in the bank should I make this move, but I have to say, it is very likely. I think Cunha went up in price 2 days ago, if not 3. So I think another price change is possible before the deadline, but most likely we'll see it on Wednesday morning. So that would be after the Tuesday deadline has closed, and it will be covered in that stream tomorrow. So be sure to stay tuned for that as well. Which transfers are you considering? It seems almost too easy, this one. Maybe a template kind of transfer. And ultimately, I need to go for something a little bit different and rise up those ranks, because this would be by far my worst season of all time in FPL. But there are things to learn, of course, when you are doing poorly, and this is how my team would line up if I were to buy Matheus Cunha, which is very likely. Between the sticks, there is definitely no choice for me here. Matt sells against Arsenal at home, but I am backing Forest to win, and I think a 2-0 victory is certainly possible. I just don't see how the Gunners are going to score goals now, and ultimately they need like a player off the bench like Marino against Leicester to maybe cause an upset and ace in the hole, so to speak. But when he starts the game, it's a different story. And against West Ham, Arsenal were completely toothless. And for 80 minutes against Leicester, it was the same thing. Now, despite Nottingham Forest's 4 goals conceded against Newcastle, I still think they've got enough to keep a clean sheet against Arsenal at home. And they typically respond very well when they ship in a lot of goals in a certain game. For example, a couple of weeks ago, they lost 5-0 against Bournemouth and then beat Brighton 7-0. Please don't do that on Wednesday night. Thank you very much. But a clean sheet, if you want to have the one, go ahead, take it. I'll get some points from it in the process. As for my defenders, Trent, Colwill and Robinson, it's not the greatest defensive line you'll ever see, but a saving grace, a silver lining, is the fact that Colwill faces Southampton at home. Can Chelsea keep a clean sheet? Probably not. Only 4 for the season. I've gone for a 3-1 win for Chelsea, but if they were able to keep that clean sheet and Colwill actually starts this game, that will be a massive boost there for my defensive line. And Trent against Newcastle, I've mentioned this in my other videos. He has a great record against them. 1 goal, 6 assists, 7 victories, 3 draws, 0 losses, and a few clean sheets in the process. So I think Trent is actually an outside option for the captaincy, as covered in my best wildcard team video. Robinson against Wolves away, I'm not particularly enthused about that pick, but what Robinson has is the assist potential with 10 fantasy assists for the season. With the midfield, it looks fairly strong actually, and also very template. Salah, Palmer, Kluivert, and Mbeumo. I think that is enough to get the job done. It does mean leaving Semenyo on the bench, which I'll get onto very shortly. If you have Semenyo and I decide to actually bench him in the end, start Semenyo and enjoy the points, because that is pretty much the pattern we've seen all season. With the captaincy in terms of Palmer and Salah, I'll get onto that very soon, but I think it's a very simple one. If you want to preserve rank and you're happy with how you're doing, I'd just go for Mohamed Salah. He's the informed guy with a great record against Newcastle, 10 goals and 7 assists against them. He has never blanked at Anfield against the Toon, whilst Palmer would be the kind of outside captaincy shout, so to speak, because of a lack of form, and he's facing the worst team in the league. So if you want to kind of chase rank, rise up mini leagues, and go against the grain and the template, Cole Palmer would be the one. I wouldn't consider Kluivert or Mbeumo for the captaincy as much. Mbeumo does feature in my top 10 list, but against an informed Everton side, I think there are better options even in the midfield. Jeroboam could be one of them, Bruno Fernandes this week, for example, but in the long term, Bryan Mbeumo is still the better option. As for my front line, this is pretty much the best front three you can build in FPL. The other one to consider is Jean-Philippe Mateta, but Chris Wood and Cunha are perfect to navigate Blank Gameweek 29, whether you free hit in that Blank Gameweek in particular, or maybe you just use free transfers and want to have 2 players who feature in that blank. I think Chris Wood and Cunha are great acquisitions for your FPL team. Whilst Alexander Isak blanks in 29, he has a double in 32, and from Gameweek 30 onwards, I have a tough decision to make. Do I sell Chris Wood or Cunha, albeit temporarily, to Jean-Philippe Mateta? That's something I have to weigh up by that stage, but my focus right now is on Gameweek 27, and buying Cunha makes a lot of sense for my team. Now let's talk about my bench. We can forget about the assistant manager. Bye-bye Arne Slot, thanks for the points. I've got Valdemarsson, Semenyo, Mikalenko, and the injured Veltman at the moment, who could return for Tuesday, but Hurstler didn't give much away. He said, we have to assess it on a day-to-day basis, but he could be back fairly soon. But ultimately, Veltman is third on my bench, and Semenyo is first, and whenever he is in that first on my bench spot, he does very, very well, to say the least. And I think Brighton away is still a fairly decent fixture for attackers, but Semenyo has never scored or assisted against the Seagulls in his entire career. What does that mean for Gameweek 27? We'll find out very soon, of course. And Mikalenko second on my bench makes sense. I would rather avoid these kind of conflicts if possible. I've already got one in my team in terms of Robinson versus Cunha. In fact, 2 with Trent versus Isak as well. So I'd rather avoid a third by having Mikalenko up against Mbeumo. Could they return in the same game? It's very unlikely. And I think with Robinson Cunha, you can still see a world where both of them produce a return. Robinson with an assist, and then Cunha with one of his customary goals and maximum bonus points. With the captaincy right now, I'm looking at Salah, but in terms of my rank, I'm not happy with where I am, so it might make sense for me to go against the grain, and Palmer is very close to be my final captain. That's something I'll weigh up from now until the deadline, but ultimately, I want to score the most points possible, and I think Salah is still the man to beat. He is number 1 in my captaincy list, and he's got a great record against Newcastle, especially at Anfield. He's also the best player in the world right now, especially amongst attackers. He's getting the goals and the assists pretty much in every single game, and that's why you need a great reason to go against Salah, even if your rank is really low. Sometimes, if you just keep going against Salah, time after time again, that's only going to push you down the ranks if you look at it from that perspective. You can match or better Salah in certain weeks with the captaincy, but to do it consistently is going to be extremely difficult because he is having the season of his life. Let's also look at expected points according to Fantasy Football Hub, and let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. What do you think of these shirts? Obviously based on if they're home or away and yada yada yada. But I've got Sells in goal. Trent's expected points is 5, which isn't the greatest, but for a defender, I'd say that is reasonably decent, especially against a solid team in Newcastle, but they can never seem to beat Liverpool, especially in the Premier League. Levi Colwill has 4.1, that's the highest he'll ever get this season, and surely it's about time he produces 1 defensive return either against Leicester or Southampton over the next 2 game weeks. Robinson, I think, is still a decent option to start in most game weeks, but I think he is expendable in the coming weeks, especially with Blank Gameweek 29 in mind and also the future doubles. He does feature at least in Blank Gameweek 29 to be fair, but Tottenham, the opposition they will face in that blank, are in pretty decent form right now. My midfield kind of speaks for itself, but the expected points does favour Palmer this week, even over Salah. This is going to be one of the rare occasions where Salah isn't top of these algorithms for predicted points. Even FPL.team, for example, do recommend Palmer as the best captain. Mbeumo and Kluivert have reasonable figures, but Fantasy Football Hub do suggest starting Semenyo over Kluivert, which is very interesting to say the least. I'm going for Kluivert right now because he's on penalties and he also shows more consistency than Semenyo, I would argue. But having said that, I think the main advantage of going for Semenyo instead of Kluivert in my setup with a starting 11 is the fact he's much lower owned, so that would be another way of me making up rank potentially, going against the template. If it works out well, it could be a nice green arrow and significant rank rise, but of course there is the contrary, and if things go wrong there is always that possibility that it ends up being a massive mistake. But that is the position I put myself in with that Bournemouth midfield double up, and should I buy Matheus Cunha, that would cause a benching dilemma. So if you look at my three forwards, Chris Wood, Isak and Cunha, all of them with difficult fixtures on paper, but their expected points is always going to be very high at around 5 to 6, so I think they are excellent choices in that position. Valdimarsson, Semenyo, Mykolenko and Veltman are on my bench, as I discussed before. Both Mykolenko and Veltman share 2.5 expected points, but we could see changes from now until the deadline. Let's do a sneak preview of Gameweek 28, courtesy of FPL.team, the website. Sells would be in goal facing Man City at home. Trent, Colwill and Robinson would still remain my back three, with Colwill facing Leicester and the other two having pretty decent fixtures, especially in the case of Trent facing Southampton at home. I mean, Liverpool could run away with it, but if Conor Bradley is available by then, which is a big if, could Trent be benched? I mean, it's a good opportunity to rest players and for Liverpool to still get the job done, but Salah would be my captain undoubtedly in such a week. Mbeumo, Palmer and Kluivert would complete the midfield. Once again, do I go for Semenyo over Kluivert? Should I buy Matheus Cunha and have these benching dilemmas? That is another question I will need to answer. Chris Wood, Cunha and Isak is a great front three in every single game week, and Chris Wood faces Man City. He has a poor record against them, but the way the season has been going, surely he'll get opportunities to score and he'll finally bury one against his favourite club, Man City, by the way. Yes, he is a Man City supporter. Valdimarsson, Semenyo, Mykolenko and Veltman would complete my bench, and the expected points is much higher in Gameweek 28 compared to 27. 74.7, if you compare that to Gameweek 27, is 65.8 according to FPL.team. Usually they're quite harsh with the expected points, you could say, but that is a sneak preview of Gameweek 28. I'll talk more about this throughout the next few weeks, of course. There is a bit more of a break in terms of deadlines from Gameweek 27 to 28, but of course, this is the quick turnaround we have, and that's why the best wildcard and transfers videos have already been published, and the same goes for my reaction stream on Saturday night. That concludes another team selection video for the season, this time out of Gameweek 27, and that's a double upload and recording today. So show your support to the channel, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and also hit that notification bell to never miss a single upload or live stream. Keep your eyes peeled for more FPL and user fantasy content. There's going to be my drafts for match day 11 in the round of 16, and also my team selection, another deadline stream, which will be next Tuesday. But of course, for FPL, there is tomorrow another deadline on Tuesday, and I will be here answering all your questions and comments, so you have the full coverage for Gameweek 27. You can also follow me on X, Instagram and Blue Sky. Dylan RCM and FPL Dylan is the way to find me. There's my Discord server, FPL League, Spotify, and also my Patreon if you want to support the channel even further. It's patreon.com/DylanRCM, and you can also click the join button on YouTube. Thank you very much for all your support, especially the super chatters, patrons, members and subscribers. You're massively appreciated. I wish you all the best of luck for the rest of the season, and even for Gameweek 27, of course, which is coming right up. And stay tuned for that deadline stream tomorrow.